The United States Supreme Court weakens a key aspect of the Voting Rights Act. In an exclusive sit-down, Governor J.B. Pritzker says he's outraged at the decision that he thinks could erase minority representation in Congress. Tonight we get to the point.
Chicago's very own, with WGN Political Editor Tahman Bradley. This is The Point.
Good evening. The Supreme Court's conservative majority rules a congressional map in Louisiana relied too heavily on race. It's a blow to a landmark civil rights law aimed at protecting minority voters. The political fallout could be enormous. The ruling could improve Republicans' fortunes ahead of the midterms. Governor J.B. Pritzker has positioned himself on the front lines of the resistance to President Trump's party. Today, sitting alongside Juliana Stratton and Christian Mitchell, Pritzker said he'll protect minority representation. Samuel Alito writes in the majority opinion that the court is keeping in place the Voting Rights Act and that this was about one district in Louisiana. Why are you so concerned?
They've gutted the Voting Rights Act. That's why we're concerned. It doesn't matter they've left the law, the words in the law. They've literally gutted the meaning of it. And it means it's an abomination. I mean, they literally have gone after the crown jewel of American democracy. That is that we have diverse representation in this country. And now we're not going to have that because of this Supreme Court. I'm outraged. I'm outraged on behalf of black and brown people across the United States, on behalf of minorities in the United States who have fought so hard for this Voting Rights Act to make sure that they were represented, and now the Republicans are taking that away.
Do you think this decision means then that there will be new Republican districts in majority minority districts across the country?
There very well may. I mean, already you've seen Marsha Blackburn come out and say they need to redraw the map in Tennessee. And you got to remember, this is a series of decisions. In 2013, they gutted Section 5. In 2021, they ended oversight of laws that could disenfranchise voters. And now you have another nail in the coffin of the Voting Rights Act. And you've already got GOP representatives saying, hey, we got to redraw these maps and create even more GOP districts. And part of the reason is because they know that they are unpopular. They know that they're going to lose. And so they are trying to cheat, and it's shameful.
I mean, I just want to build on that. They're taking us back 60 years plus of progress. And I watch this decision come down, and I come with the lens of my father who marched from Selma to Montgomery in 1965 to protest voting rights discrimination. And so many others who marched and protested and raised their voices. And here we are 60 years later, 61 years later, and look at what's happening. So yes, this is an effort to dilute the black voting power. This is an effort to try to roll back rights. And we're not going to just sit on the sidelines and watch this happen. We're going to keep fighting just like we saw those, like my dad 60 years ago.
So what can you do? Because hours after this decision, Florida moved to redraw their maps. What do you do?
Well, Florida was set up to redraw their maps even before this decision. They were going to do this on behalf of Donald Trump, who asked them to do it for him. This accelerates the endeavor of Republicans to take away voting rights from, well, frankly, from Democrats, but especially from black and brown people across the United States. Look, there's an awful lot that we can do, and especially in the state of Illinois, where, we've elected more black people to Congress than any other state in the United States, and I'm proud of that fact. And I hope that we're going to see the second black woman in the United States Senate from Illinois when Juliana Stratton wins in November. Very important to us that we maintain our position as a state that stands up for people's voting rights. Now, we're looking at ways to do that, whether it's a constitutional amendment or it's a change in the law to protect people, but it is vitally important from my perspective that we do that. We're not going to see a change in our districting in the state of Illinois as a result of this decision. All the constitutional experts that I spoke with today tell me that. But it could happen in the future, and especially if there is a Republican governor and a Republican legislature that wants to do something like that, they easily could. So we've got to find ways to make sure we're protecting people's voting rights right here in the state of Illinois, even if we can't do it federally.
Last week, the House voted to put a constitutional amendment with redistricting on the ballot. We learned from the Senate president this afternoon the Senate is not going to vote on that. How disappointed are you?
Well, I do think we should be looking at a constitutional amendment. Again, I think I have talked to constitutional experts who tell me there are some issues with that particular amendment. It has the right impetus behind it, don't get me wrong. It's just that there may need to be made some changes to it. By the way, again, the timing of when we pass an amendment like that, if that in fact were going to happen, is not that important. It doesn't have to happen right now. It could happen, for example, and be on the 28 ballot, not on the 26 ballot, because we're not going to see redistricting in the state of Illinois.
This seems like an issue for red states, the idea of no more protections for majority, minority districts. What's the threat to Illinois?
Well, first of all, let me just talk about Voting Rights Act, the voting rights in general. I mean, we've done a lot of work, as you've just heard here in Illinois, to make sure that we've expanded access to the ballot box. That's important. We want every Illinoisan to be able to make their voices heard through their vote. And we've done that work. But there are some things that we can do on the federal level. I mean, one of the things that I've said, that when I get to Washington, D.C., first and foremost, I want to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, because we need to look at what's happening on a federal level. A state like Illinois is going to stand up for its people, and we're going to protect people's voting rights, but we're not seeing that all across the country, and we need to make sure that we pass federal legislation to make sure that that happens. The other thing is that we know that the Supreme Court should really be a check, and we're not seeing a Supreme Court that is a check. Certainly not to this president. In fact, we have a Supreme Court that is rubber stamping this president's authoritarian agenda. So what we need to be doing is, I want to go to Washington to be a check on this president. When the Democrats take back the Senate, I want to see us abolish the filibuster so that we can get the John Lewis Voting Rights Act passed and make sure that we protect voting rights all across the country. So I think all of us are alarmed, we're angry, we're standing up because we know that this president is trying to erode our rights and our democracy, and every single day we're seeing Republicans play a role in that. And we have to stand up right now, because if we give them an inch, they're going to take a mile.
Governor, Republicans say you don't have credibility on this issue, that you campaigned for independent map making and said that you would veto a partisan-drawn map.
What I want is a federal law that requires all 50 states to have independent commissions. That's the right answer, because here's the problem. When Democratic states on our own simply put in place an independent commission, and then there are, maps that are drawn that are whatever, 50-50, let's say. You go to Tennessee, you go to Florida, you go to Texas, they're not doing that. Those Republican states, they're simply gerrymandering the heck out of their situations. And so, in my view, we need to just get rid of it entirely across the 50 states. Oh, by the way, there was a law that was voted on, a bill that was voted on in Congress. Every Democrat voted for having independent commissions. Every Republican voted against independent commissions. That should tell you something.
Donald Trump won 93 of Illinois' 102 counties, but there are only 3 Republicans in Congress.
Well, as you know, the population is not distributed evenly between the 102 counties. So when people I know Republicans like to hold up the map and say, oh, look, this county voted red, this county voted red. In fact, as you just said, a whole bunch of counties voted red. There aren't a whole lot of people who live in those counties. It's about the popular vote in a state. And in our state, look, it's a Democratic state. And by the way, we drew the map in Illinois. It was drawn by the legislators, but it was drawn to allow minority representation all across the state of Illinois and to protect minority representation. That's something that now the Republicans have proven with this decision at the Supreme Court, and the the belief by Republicans across the country that this is okay. This is okay to take away people's representation. We don't think that in the state of Illinois.
Bottom line, will there be fewer blacks in Congress in light of this ruling?
I believe the answer is yes.
It's what they want. Again, this is about diluting black political power. It's about taking away voting rights. And we know that representation matters. We know that even as I'm running for United States Senate right now, that I would be only the 6th black woman in history to ever serve in the United States Senate. And it's important that our voices are represented in the places where policy decisions are being made that impact all of our communities. So yes, if they have their way, the goal is to shift the political dynamic. It is to dilute political power for black and brown communities. And what we are here saying is that we're going to do everything within our power to make sure that we protect the people of Illinois and their voting rights and continue to advocate at the federal level, and that's one of the things that I seek to do, to make sure that everyone's rights are protected. Because that is right at the very core and foundation of our democracy, the right to decide your representation and for representation to reflect the country that we have.
If someone wants to protest this, what the Supreme Court has done, the best way to do that, show up and vote in November. And vote the Republicans out. They're the ones who've done this to you. It is time for people to get up, find their courage, show up, and vote them out.
We're back in 60 seconds. Finally tonight, a tip of the hat to a resource for journalists and folks at home. That would be SCOTUS blog. The team there does an excellent job explaining the complex issues in front of the Supreme Court in ways that are easy to understand. Check it out. We sure did today. And that is The Point. I'm Tahman Bradley. Micah is back with more news tonight at 9 o'clock. The Forecasters is next on WGN+. Good night.